Hello everyone, how you doing? It's your friend Phil here, project management trainer and coach. I hope you are doing absolutely awesome. And I hope you've been doing what you know you should be doing. You know what that is? Getting your PMP exam ducks in a row. I hope you spent yesterday the right way if you're in the government and you were on that little break for Columbus Day. I really hope you did what you're supposed to have done, which is staying on top of it, staying on top of it. A lot of people, they allow themselves have these excuses about why they didn't study, but I ain't buying that. You gotta study. Don't tell me, oh, I'm on vacation, so I'm just taking a week off. Do you know what a week off can do to your studying? Do you know what it could do to your velocity? You gotta be on it. You gotta be on top of it. And you need to look at yourself as a high performance athlete getting ready for that final bout, so that you don't look like McGregor in the ring. You're not tapping out, crying uncle like McGregor. You saw what happened to him last week, huh? You don't want to be like that. You want to be the aggressor, attacking this stuff every single day. There's no reason. There's no reason to go a day without attacking this thing until you get certified. And even if you're not attacking the book, the PMBOK guide, I expect you to be attacking your studying, to be aggressively attacking the studying. So, anyway, today I thought it would be a good thing if we talked about common misconceptions as people study for the exam. Some people have ideas that are not entirely right, and we should probably correct a few of these ideas because I hear them so many times across the board. Different countries, people who have attended a boot camp, those who have not. And speaking of boot camp, I just got done with my workout, so I look quite informal today. I just got off the treadmill. I did my stretches. I did legs today. Today was leg day. Crazy. You see, as you're getting ready for the PMP exam, you got to look at it like a workout. So every day, in my mind, anyone studying for the exam that's getting close, you're a month out and less, I expect you to be doing certain workouts daily for your PMP prep. The first one, I know you know what I'm talking about. The first one is, of course, what is it? Can you guess? Can someone chat into me? What is the number one workout that I expect you to be doing daily? Number one workout that your friend Phil expects you to be working on daily. Can you guess? Page 25. I expect you to be working page 25 like no man's business. I expect you to be hitting that page hard, hitting it aggressively. Get a whiteboard, put a whiteboard up in your cubicle or in your office, and every single morning you got to do your reps in page 25. You got to get it down to 3 minutes. Can you do that? I mean, that's really aggressive. I struggle to do under 5 minutes. But I'm telling you, if you're getting ready for the exam, you got to be even crazier than your buddy Phil. You see, you you got to get this thing down to under 5 minutes. So if you can make 3 minutes, guess what? You get into the exam and boom, you've cranked it out in 3 minutes. You see, so that is one of the workouts I expect you to do daily. Page 25. Dump it down. Maybe your time starts off at 7 or 10 or maybe even 15. You want to go from having to write out every single word, develop project charter. You want to go from that to DPC. It's develop project charter. Or DPMP. It's develop project management plan. So you want to go from having to write out every single word to those abbreviations. Okay? So I'm depending on you that you're going to get yourself a whiteboard and you're going to do that. Okay, the second thing I expect you to do is your basic data flows. Because the more you do the basic data flows, the more it's going to stick. And you get to the point where you just know it inside out. So if you haven't watched my basic data flow video, you definitely want to watch that. Okay? My basic data flow video for the PMP exam that shows how the charter comes out and where it goes, and ultimately you get deliverables and how that flow all works together, that is going to help you. So, two workouts. I mean, I expect you to be able to do this daily. Okay? Then the third one, which may span across several days, is the major output workout. What are the major outputs of every single one of the 49 that do not recur, that only appear once? So, Project Charter is from Develop Project Charter. Assumption Log is from Develop Project Charter as well. The Project Management Plan from Develop Project Management Plan. Lessons Learned Register from Manage Project Knowledge, and so on and so forth. But I'm looking for those unique ones. So if you can take integration and do a dump on Monday of all of the core outputs of all of the seven, then on Tuesday, go for scope, all of the core outputs. Then on Wednesday, you see what I'm saying? Until you exhaust all the 10 knowledge areas, and then start again until you get to the point where you know all of these things. And then the next thing would be to go from that into the core tools and techniques. Okay? So go from the core tools and techniques in integration to the core tools and techniques of scope, process by process. That's what I expect from you. If you're getting ready for the PMP exam, I expect you to be really working yourself out until you get to the point where you're like, I am baked and I'm done. Okay? So that's what I expect from you. Anyway, today, like I said, we're talking about common misconceptions in PMBOK Guide awareness. There are some common misconceptions folks have, and I thought we should work a little bit, just a tiny little bit today, to correct those. Okay? So while I'm adjusting my microphone, I want you guys, if you got any questions or concerns, now would be an excellent time to chat them in, okay? All right, in the absence of any questions, we'll just move on ahead. And I'm going to be showing you certain misconceptions, both from a studying perspective, and I'll just take one knowledge area, actually, one process from a knowledge area, and we'll talk about these really quickly. All right? So, what are the common misconceptions in PMBOK Guide awareness? Well, first of all, let me say that if you're struggling with your tools and techniques, you want to go to this link and take a look at this superb curriculum for tools and techniques. It's tinyurl.com/ITTOPMP. This is a really great curriculum to help you keep the tools and techniques, just the tools and techniques, because those are the miserable things in the book, especially them. I mean, the inputs and outputs, they're bad, but they're not as bad as the tools and techniques. So check out this link when we're done. Don't go there now, when we're done. All right. So let's talk, first of all, let's talk about common misconceptions in studying for the exam. I'm going to show you some statements that are false, and then I'll show you what is the reality. Okay. So the false statement: cramming the PMBOK guide is one of the most important things to do while studying for the PMP exam. I mean, it will shock you and amaze you that some folks think they need to cram. And I hear this from all sorts of students. Oh, I've got to cram. I've got to stay up cramming. No, you don't. You're doing it wrong. If you're staying up cramming the PMBOK guide, I'm telling you, you're doing it wrong. Cramming the PMBOK guide is not what you are meant to do. This is not a memorization exam. And memorizing all the inputs, tools, techniques, if you could draw out the entire PMBOK guide data flows, it still will not help you on the PMP exam very much, because the PMP exam is a situational based exam. It's based on applying the knowledge. So you can have all the knowledge. You could even take the PMBOK guide in, and people would still fail the exam. You see, because it's not enough to know, oh, that's an input, that's an output, and it belongs here. That's not enough. The application, the logic, the sense of all the connections is what's going to make you successful. All right? So the right way to think, the true statement is really, someone doesn't like the PMBOK guide apparently. All right. So the true statement is understanding the PMBOK guide is one of the most important things to do. Understand it. Not cramming, but understanding. You see, there's a difference between cramming a bunch of information versus knowing why the information is presented as it is. See? So that's a common misconception. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I'm going to stay up and I'm going to cram. I, it's not going to do you much good. Trust me. It'll help get the knowledge in your head, rote fashion, parrot fashion, but you're not going to be able to apply it. All right, let's take a look at another statement here. Another false statement is you must memorize all the ITTOs to be successful on the PMP exam. And I've heard this from a lot of students. A lot of students think they got to memorize, develop project charter, I have to memorize business documents, EEFs, OPAs. I'm like, guys, that's not how to do it. You're just killing yourself for no reason. You could memorize all the ITTOs and still fail the exam. There are a lot of people that are gifted crammers. They can chunk in a lot of information into their heads, but unfortunately, they are not successful on the PMP exam. And people ask, but why? I mean, they knew the knowledge so well. They knew the knowledge, but they couldn't apply the knowledge. You see? So there's a difference between cramming and getting the knowledge into your head to some degree versus actually understanding, you see. So I want you guys to go from cramming the information to actually knowing why. Why do I need to do my develop project charter before identify stakeholders? Why do I need to do identify stakeholders first before I carry out my planned stakeholder engagement? And then why do I need to recycle my stakeholder engagement plan back into identify stakeholders? Why? Why do I need to do that? And why is it that work performance data needs to go into all of those places it goes? And why doesn't it go anywhere in integration? Why does it come from integration but not going? You see, understanding this stuff is going to make you more powerful as a PMP exam student. Not just cramming a bunch of things, because the exam is going to be, why would you do this? You got to know the rationale. Oh, you're a project manager on a project and you saw this and this. What should you do about it? You probably heard something similar from people who have taken the exam, okay? So it is very, very important, guys, that you don't get into the blind cramming mode. I call it the blind crammer mode. You just want to cram everything in the guide or everything in your study guide. That ain't going to help. And that's not where you want to be. All right, so the correct statement to this should actually be, you do not have to memorize all the ITTOs to be successful on the PMP exam. It's true, you don't have to. You don't. Tell me how Parmeet Singh, one of my students out of Canada, tell me how he was able to get on our learning system on a Thursday, never been to a PMP exam prep course, studied project management for his master's degree, but never been for a PMP prep course. Tell me how he jumped on the system on a Thursday and killed the exam on a Monday. Tell me how he did that. Do you think it's by cramming? Of course not. It's by understanding the linkages between processes, the rationale behind what is going on in the guide, okay? All right, so now we're done with all that cramming stuff. Let's talk about something else. Some people say you don't really have to have any target as you study. Just study when you can. You know, if you can study today, study today. If you can't, don't kill yourself. Tomorrow, if the job makes you do all sorts of stuff and you're tired, just rest. No. You gotta be on it. You gotta have a schedule. Some of you play Russian roulette with your $555. You're like, oh, my exam's scheduled in 1 week from now, but I haven't really done the studying I should. Are you kidding? You spent okay, you're probably a millionaire. You got so much money that you couldn't care less about I cared about my $555. Are you kidding? I did everything under the sun to prepare. Hardcore. I read the book the study guide, the PMBOK guide. I read the PMBOK guide 2.5 times, and I read my study guide ad nauseum. I would open it, read it. I would be on trips, project management trips to clients. I would take my stuff with me, open it up on the plane, read it, study it. I went through all of my exam questions so many times. It was ridiculous. I mean, I went through my test questions, the mock exams I had, so many times that I exhausted all that I had. I mean, I had gone over it so many times. And this is one of the landmarks and the hallmarks of people that kill the exam. There was a student, I remember this student, because we at Praizion were wondering, what is going on? This dude takes the mock exam every single day, almost every day. Took the exam again and again and again. And then we got an email: Phil, I've passed the exam. Even though when he was taking the mock exams, half of the time he was failing, half of the time he was passing. But the repetition, the grind of it added to his success factor. And he killed the exam, even before many of his colleagues. So I'm trying to let you see the repetition, the deliberateness, the grind of it, making yourself do it even when you don't want to. It will add value in the long run. So people who say, "Oh, just study when you can," you don't need to have a schedule. Don't go crazy on this stuff. It's not a project. Are you kidding? It is a project. And as a project manager, I expect you to have a Microsoft project schedule. All right, let's leave Bill out of this. Let's leave the Microsoft people out. How about a good old Excel schedule? Have you got a schedule? I hope you do. Just like you've got a timetable telling you what comes up next at work, or a calendar saying you got this meeting, that meeting. You got to schedule this stuff, folks. You got to schedule it. Trust me. If you don't schedule it, you're just going to be like this, like blown about by every change in your schedule. And I realized this, and that's why 2 months before I took the PMP exam, I made a pact with myself to take it on a particular day. Now, did I meet that exact day? It wasn't that exact day. In fact, I am the poster child for the never ending PMP exam shift, because my exam is scheduled for Monday. Oh, I'm not ready. Then I would move it to the next week. Oh, making excuses. Don't do that. But one thing I did right was at least put it on my calendar to start with. And then when I started making all these goofy excuses, oh, I'm traveling, yeah, I was scared. That's really what it was. It was fear. Fear of saying, I'm ready, I'm going to do it. So I got so sick of myself. I said, Phil, the 25th of June, I don't care. No excuse. I am not changing this date, because I had changed it twice before. Said, Phil, you're going into the exam. And I pushed him into the exam, and he passed the exam, and he did a lot better than he thought. Even while he was going through the exam, Phil thought he was failing, but he wasn't. So I want to encourage you guys. You know the antidote to this? Get an exam date. Fix it. Whether it's 2 months out or 3 months out, it makes no difference. But at least you've got a target. You got a target date you're aiming towards. A lot of people aren't aiming towards anything, you know? So people who say, just study when you can, you don't necessarily need a schedule or a target date, just keep on going. You know, the PMBOK guide is pretty defined. There are 13 chapters. Read all the 13 chapters. When you're ready, take the exam. No. Fix a date. Now, what is the correct way to think? The correct way to think is not having a schedule or a target date could be extremely detrimental to your PMP exam prep. I know it firsthand, trust me. I've seen a lot of students. You see, this could lead to uncompletion for several months, years, or total abandonment. I've seen it again. I've seen the brightest and the best PMP students in my class drop out like flies. Oh, I can't do it anymore. It's been a long time I studied, Phil. Where do I even start from? PMBOK's changed. And they end up not taking the exam. Ever. Ever. One of my classes out of Virginia, my star student, there was a lady that was killing it, mowing it down, causing mayhem, because people would see what she scored and be like, my goodness, you are a machine. That star student till today is still not a PMP. She's not even walked into the exam hall. You see? So I want to encourage you, have a target date, all right? I just saw a chat in from one of our friends. Let's see what we've got here. One of our friends chatted in, I believe. So let me take a look here. Christopher, how you doing? Thank you for chatting in, Christopher. Do you have a plan for an exam date 1 week out? Yes, so Christopher, what I normally tell my students to do is to study a knowledge area a day. Now, if you are getting ready for the exam and your exam is a week out, you got to step it out. So let me give you you got to step it up. Let me give you a few ideas. First of all, you know that a knowledge area a day is not going to cut it. You got to be more aggressive, okay? Because there are 13 chapters in the PMBOK guide and you're only 7 days out, it means that you need to be putting in a lot more effort. For me, I would suggest attacking the low-hanging fruit first. So let me type this in for you just to give you a quick idea. So if I were you, on a Monday, I would do initiating, I would do closing, and I would do executing. If I were you, that is what I would do. Because this is not that many processes when you think of it, but the payoff is massive. So you want to get the big chunks out of the way that are going to give you a good bang for your buck. I talk about this in some of my recent videos, Christopher. You might want to check these out. So closing is one process. It gives you 7% on the exam. Initiating is two processes. It gives you 13% of the exam. That's already 20% from just three processes. That's a boatload of marks. And then executing is 10 processes, but gives you 31%. So by the time you get done on Monday, your mark accrual should be looking like 50%. You should be like, oh, I'm 51% of the way there. So that Monday has got to be aggressive though. So for me, initiating, I would give it 1 hour. Closing, I would give it roughly an hour as well, because there's a lot of stuff buried in closed project or phase. And executing, I would give it 3 hours. And I'd go hard all the way, go to a quiet place, secluded place, and crank all this stuff out. Know your core inputs and outputs, those that are not regular themes that you find across the processes, and the tools and techniques. I would do that on a Monday. All right. On a Tuesday, I would definitely go for monitoring and controlling. Okay. So that's 25% of your exam on Tuesday. And I'll put in about 3 or 4 hours. I would tackle things like the recurring themes. So you got EVM. I would tackle EVM once and for all. I would tackle control schedule, going over your network diagrams, understanding the forward and backward passes, maybe playing with a few questions here and there. But more importantly, I would get the recurring themes down, such as WPD, WPI, WPR, where they come from, where they go, change requests. That in and of itself should take you about an hour to comb through configuration management, change requests, and read the whole PICC. Okay, you want to read the entire performing a great change control as many times as you need to get the essence of it, because that's a huge part of your exam. All right. So everything you need to do to get monitoring and controlling under control, I would do. All right. Then finally, planning, which is a big kahuna by way of number, not by way of payoff on the exam, but by way of number. Okay. Planning has too many processes. For that reason, I'll break it out into 2 days. And the low hanging fruit that I would attack there are the clusters. The clusters that I suspect the PMI would serve you heavily on the exam. So we're talking about, first of all, risk management. I would attack that like no man's business. I would attack schedule management like no man's business within planning, because they're clusters. What do I mean by clusters? So if you take a look at risk management, you got plan risk management, identify risk, perform qualitative, perform quantitative, plan risk responses. Five. That is 5 out of the 20 what? 220, is it 24 or 25? Do you know, Christopher, how many processes are in planning? Is it 24? Or is it 25? 24. Okay. 5 out of the 24. You see? So that's like 1/5 almost. That's a chunk. And then you look at scheduling, plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities. estimate activity durations, develop schedule, another 5. So you can see out of the 24, 10 are from just 2 knowledge areas. So I'd attack that. Then next I would go for scope, and you can change the order of it. I mean, maybe scope first and then schedule and then risk, but I'm so afraid of risk for some people that I would say risk needs to be attacked first, because a lot of people just breeze past it. A lot of people breeze past qualitative and quantitative. See, so I would do them kind of in the order. For me personally, I'm quite paranoid about PMI and risk, and maybe the reason is I've taken a PMI exam, the risk management professional, and riddled with trickery. Riddled with trickery. I mean, some people say it's not trickery. It's asking good questions. Okay, whatever we call it, it wasn't a cakewalk. So when it comes to risk, I'm scared for a lot of students because they don't read the intricacies. So I would go for risk, I would go for schedule, I'd go for scope, and then I would do everything else pretty much out of order. Because if you look at the rest, most of them, have one. Resource management has a couple. So that may be a good place to start. And the resource management plan is massive. There's a lot to really unravel there. So if I were you, I would attack the heavies first, risk, schedule, just because of the number. You want to get those big numbers out of the way. Scope, I think we've got 3: plan scope management, collect requirements. Okay, we got 4 in scope. So yeah, it's kind of in economies of scale. 5 from risk in planning, 5 from schedule in planning, 4 from scope in planning, um, resource, and then cost. Yeah, cost has 3. So in my mind, I would tackle the economies of scale. Cost has plan, cost management, estimate cost, and determine budget, which is 3. Resource management is 2. So that would be my advice. And then after you get done with those days, what I would recommend, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Phil, I've taken a bunch of mock exams." Trust me, if you've not taken the Praizion mock exams, I often tell people say, how difficult could they be? Or how challenging could they be? And I just tell people, look, you probably want to go look into our mock exams. Look at it as a way of ensuring your PMP exam experience, you know. So if you go to the website Praizion.com will afford you the ability to take some ridiculous mock exams that you've never seen before. So if you go to the training menu and you scroll to 200 question full length tough mock exams, it'll take you to this page. And my advice would be, first of all, play with the sample. We got a sample test. Play with the sample, okay? Put in the password, see what you get. See what you get. And then I would recommend anyone who truly means business, because the mock exams out there do not have the kind of track record that makes me comfortable. These mock exams, if you pass these mock exams, any of them on your first try, it is a massive green signal to close the gaps and advance to the test center. I've seen this again and again. One of our students, April, she said, "Phil, I want to take my exam in 2 weeks. I'm going to take your mock exam tomorrow." All right. Tomorrow came. She took the mock. She killed it with like a 78 or 79. I'm like, "April, you need to schedule your exam this week. You're ready. What are you waiting for?" She's like, "Seriously?" I'm like, "Of course I'm serious. I've seen this happen time and time again. Anyone that gets 70 and above on our mock exams on their first try, 99% of the time, they pass the real exam on their first try." So I said, "What are you waiting for? Go ahead and do it." She said, "Phil, if I don't pass, I'll hold you accountable." I said, "Call me when you got something sensible and reasonable to say." Anyway, long story short, she went ahead and scheduled her exam, her real exam, 2 days out. Boom, killed it. You see? So what I'm trying to tell you is that these mock exams are tested and tried. We've seen it again and again. I tell students, "You're ready. Go take it. I know you're going to kill it." Like, "How do you know?" I'm like, "Look, this is historical information and expert judgment combined. We've been doing this for a while." Because when we first came out with the exam, students would say, what joke is this? I mean, I got done on your mock exam in 2 hours. I got into the real exam, I spent 4 hours. I said, okay, I see what's happening. We're going to have to spice this up. So we got 8 question writers from all around the world. We based this mock exam on the PMP exam content outline, and it's brutal. All 3 mock exams are just killer. They're awful mock exams. And those are the kind of exams, Christopher, that you want to take before you take your real exam. So part of your curriculum needs to be taking some crazy mock exams. I know that there's some mock exams out there that are difficult. I'm not talking about difficulty because a lot of the mock exams that are difficult are out of line with the PMBOK Guide dogma today, or out of line with what the PMI would probably serve you. So they're unnecessarily abstract. There's a difference between being difficult and tough in context versus being abstract. And some of these mock exams out there is so ridiculously abstract. I'm like, even if the PMI question writers were on PCP, they're not going to write those kind of questions. Some people writing questions that are so far out. I'm like, even if they were on coke, they ain't going to be writing that. So seriously, you want to take mock exams that are relevant. And very few of the mock exams out there these days are in context with the content outline. Some question writers just roll over on one side of the bed and like, maybe I should write a question on earned schedule. And boom, you see the question appear, but it's out of context with the real thing. So I say all of that to say, Christopher, after you do your Monday, your Tuesday, your Wednesday, and Thursday, the Friday needs to be mock exams that are going to unravel gaps. Now, for those of you watching that have your own PMP exam, like 1 month out, 2 months out, this is the stuff you want to start today, guys and gals. You don't want to wait until you're 1 week out before you do this, because doing it now that you got a longer gap is going to help you prepare better. I call it a gap finding exercise. Like a lot of my students, they take these exams like, Phil, I feel so unprepared. I'm scared. I failed your mock exam. Like, what are you scared about? This is a gap finding exercise. It's an intent to find gaps before the PMI does. Do you want PMI to find them for you? Or do you want your buddy Phil to help you discover them? And they're like, oh, I'd rather discover them. Of course you'd rather discover them. Because when you know them, you can close them. When you find them out on the exam, it's too late. You see? So that's my take, Christopher. That's what I would suggest for anyone studying for the PMP exam. If you've only got like a week left, you can't afford to do, oh, I'm just going to do integration. No, 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 you can't do that. That's no. You got to cover the big chunks first, all right? So Monday, initiating, closing, executing. Tuesday, monitoring and controlling. Wednesday, you're going to go with planning the first batch, 12 processes. Thursday, the next batch, another 12. And then Friday, you're going to be slamming quizzes, tiny little quizzes. Those of you that are on our system, the 2020 quizzes, the challenge quizzes, the mock exams, the mini mock, everything. And then those of you who've signed up for the mock exams, just take one of those mock exams every day, lock yourself up for 4 hours, carefully go through what you get wrong with a fine tooth comb. All right? Great idea, Christopher. Those are going to help you. And hey, the cool thing, a lot of those firms that give you mock exams, they're like hiding behind some fort somewhere, not showing you the true identity of the question writers or the people in the firm. But not so with us. I mean, you see me on social media almost every day trying to motivate people to take the exam, whether they are students or not. And that is one of the advantages of not cloaking your firm behind some big old fort or website. If you have any questions about any of the questions or you're stuck, you can be rest assured your buddy Phil isn't going to rest until you get answers. So you're making the right choice, Christopher. Go for it. And yeah, let's kill this thing. Let's obliterate the exam and let's send a message a strong message that, hey, I've done my homework and I didn't come to play. I came for payback, right? So that's my 2 cents on getting ready for the exam. Do all that you can to prepare, and you'll be laughing all the way to the score bank. All right. Well, we're going to move back into our discussion here about the misconceptions in studying. Okay. So, target date. Preparation is very important. Milestones. Like similar to Christopher, who's coming on the system now, I would say, in his prep, I would say Friday, mock exam. Saturday, mock exam. Sunday, mock exam. Or Friday morning, one mock exam. Because you've only got a week. Friday morning, one mock exam. Friday evening, a second mock exam if you feel so inclined. Or maybe Thursday morning study and take the first exam on a Thursday, the second one on a Friday, the next one on a Saturday, so that Sunday is clear. I typically advise students to leave the day before the exam for light studying, and I encourage them to watch a movie or something fun. You know, whether it's a fun show, something that makes you laugh and loosen up, maybe go for a swim, go for a jog. Don't strain yourself out though. Don't overdo it, but do something that you enjoy, something fun, something to get the blood circulating the right way. And don't burn the midnight oil. Some of my students are very naughty. They don't listen. They burn the midnight oil. They think that the last 1 hour or 2 hours of studying is gonna break the bank. No, it's not. No, it's not. So get used to the idea of I know what I need to know by 7 p.m. the night before. Okay. I know some folks still aren't going to listen, but that would be my 2 cents for it to work out best. Okay. That would be my 2 cents to you. All right. So, still on the misconceptions of studying, one of the falsehoods is, well, you don't really need a boot camp and you don't need a coach. You know what? For me, I studied all on my own. I didn't go for any boot camp. Just get a few books from Amazon, read them, and even on your application form, go for some mushroom PMP train. There's so many free PMP trains and low cost that cost like just a few bucks. Go for those and just use those for your application and do all the heavy studying on your own. Uh-uh. That is the worst piece of advice to give anyone. Do you know why? Because a lot of those courses out there don't adequately prepare you, or they give you a totally wrong idea about everything. Now, I'm not saying every course that is a deal is like this, but honestly, some courses, folks, oh dear, don't let me get started on this. Some courses are like from Hammer House of Horror, or they're from The Shining. They, they remind me of those twins. I'm like, my goodness, what on earth? This is as scary as it gets. You mean you're giving poor people this stuff to study? You're actually putting human beings in front of a course like this? Are you kidding? Beware, folks. I would rather you went for no course at all and studied on your own than you go for some courses that are out there. They're terrifying. They're, in fact, they're so terrifying that I wouldn't wish it on my enemy to go for such training. First of all, the slides are out of whack. The instructor drones on and on like it's punishment. Don't do that to yourself. Okay? So people who say, "Oh, you don't need a boot camp. Just go for one of these cheap courses. Get your credit hours for the PMP." Wrong. Bad idea. Do you know what I would rather you did? I would rather you went for a course in Primavera, Microsoft Project, the project management modules in SAP. I would rather you went for that and used that as your qualifying hours for the PMP than you go for a PMP exam course that's like from the pit. Because trust me, they're out there. So anyone saying you don't have to go for a boot camp, you don't need a coach to prepare. If you're smart, you should be able to do it on your own. It's not a question of being smart. It's really about you looking at yourself as a high performance athlete. You are a project manager, you are a professional, you might be a director, a VP, a senior program manager. You're trying to get this stuff done. Don't you think you need someone on your team to usher you across? I mean, even in the marathon, you have people in pockets cheering you on. You need this stuff, folks. So don't kid yourself that you don't need to go for a boot camp or you don't need a coach. Honestly, if I could go back in time, back to 2005 January in my time machine, I would have done a lot of things differently. First of all, I would have found a coach. I would have found a coach that really knows the business of getting certified. I didn't. I really didn't know what to do. There was no social media then, but I should have been more aggressive to go for a PMI meeting or find a PMI chapter and engage a coach. Find someone who could coach me for the exam. I didn't do that. So I ended up spending 180 days from the time my mentor, Mary, gave me her books very kindly and showed me the yellow brick road to getting PMP certified. From that time to when I actually did, it was 180 plus days. It did not have to be. I did not have to study that long. But I was studying wrong and doing things wrong, and I didn't know patterns and trends in PMP exam successes and failures. I didn't have lessons learned. Guess what? Your buddy Phil has a plethora of lessons learned from various time periods. Third edition, fourth edition, fifth edition, sixth edition. I could share lessons learned till the cows come home. I can tell you how I helped 50 of my colleagues, over 50 of them at Honeywell, when it wasn't my job to get them certified. I took it upon myself to add to the project management community, add some value, and help my colleagues. And from that, I learned a ton of things. And I learned you really do need a coach because a lot of my colleagues had been trying to get certified and failing miserably. But when I started my bi weekly boot camps back in '06, those guys started killing, mowing down the exam anyhow, just really mowing it down. And that's when I began to realize what I was training and coaching them on, which wasn't even as great as what I do today, but it went a huge way. So if you're getting ready for the exam and someone has lied to you, oh, you don't need to go for a boot camp, oh, just study, you know, some people they make me laugh. One of my students said, Phil, what I've heard is if you're smart, you can do this all in your own. And we're all from a background where we get stuff done and we can do it on your own. I'm like, you missed the boat on that one. Anyway, the true statement should be even the best high performance athletes rely on their coach and the process. I told you that today I did legs in the gym. There's a reason why I'm following a deliberate method. Because just doing it on your own without surveillance of a system, a method, an approach, a person who can hold you accountable, it's not always the best. So people like the Michael Jordans of the world, you know, one of his coaches, he says this all the time. You need a coach in your corner, you know. And this is a guy I've learned from. And when I listen to what he has to say, I'm like, no wonder. No wonder Jordan got to where he did because he's not doing this all on his own. He's doing this with motivation of a coach. He's doing this with someone behind him in the gym. He's doing this with someone behind him on the court. He's failing and moving forward. And that's exactly what this is like because you are going to fail. You are going to hit rock bottom in your PMP prep when you take mock exams like ours and it serves you a 40 or a 45 or a 60. And you're like, my goodness, I've never been a 60 student. One of my students felt so defeated. I'm like, don't worry. Look, people who have gotten 40s on this mock exam have returned to get 4 above targets. And they're like, oh, really? You see, you need a coach to keep telling you that right stuff, to keep informing you. You see? So, anyone who thinks that Jordan or Bryant or Bird or the greats got there all on their own, they're lying. No great athlete ever got there all on their own. See? So, even the best high performance athletes rely on their coach. You need your coach. You need the process. And even though some people might claim, oh, I can work alone, the learning curve and difficulty could be greatly reduced. Trust me, massively reduced with a reliable system. Okay? So get on a reliable system, even if you're in your dying hours of preparation, still get on the system, just like Christopher did. Jump on the bandwagon, make a change in your prep, do something drastic to get you from where you are to where you want to be, to your future state. All right? So, with all that said, folks, those of you who may be thinking, wow, I wish I could go for boot camp, I wish I could have a coach, I want you to go to pmsucceed.com because at the moment we have a crazy deal going on for PMP prep. Okay, it's at pmsucceed.com, and when you get to pmsucceed.com, you'll see that on the 15th of October, next week, Monday, it starts. Monday and Wednesdays and Saturdays, we're going to be going through the entire gamut of this book right here. So if you feel like, my goodness, I need a tour guide, you need to be in this course. And stop trying to do it on your own. That's the goofy method. Don't do that all on your own, especially when you've got the ability to pay for it. You know, some people, you know why a lot of people don't sign up for boot camps, especially our boot camp. They're like, oh, Phil's gonna kick me out of the chair. He's gonna kick my hind end. Don't be scared of your buddy Phil. He is only your friend trying to help you succeed. So if you come on the program, of course I'll hold you accountable. Of course I'll ask you where you're at in your prep. But that's not something to be afraid of. That's something to be happy about. Because a lot of people go for boot camps where they're just left to their own devices. They put in time and money and they get nowhere. No, no, no. That ain't my method. My method is I will do everything possible to wake you up. Now, I definitely am not going to waterboard you, but I would interrogate you as far as how you doing? How's it coming along? Tell me a little bit about the project charter. Tell me a little bit about controlling in general. Why are some processes called monitoring and others not called monitoring and called controlling and stuff such as that? I have casual conversation with you just at random. And I'll also ask you send me an accountability email every week on Fridays. Those of you watching that aren't sending me accountability emails and you are on our system, you know that you're doing something incorrect because I expect you to be telling me this is where I am. And it's part of what you pay for, folks. My surveillance is part of what you pay for. So if you're one of those folks who's been trying to get this done, you're like, my goodness, I need some accountability. I need some help. I need someone to move me from my current state to the future state. Sign up for the program and you'll learn a lot. You'll learn beyond what you learn in typical rote cramming type bootcamp. No, no, no. That's not. This is a lot of discussion, a lot of hands-on exercises, a lot of exercises that are driven to increase your aptitude about the application of the PMBOK guide, okay, versus just cramming. So we have Monday and Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern, okay? So highly advise it. Highly advise sign up for this. So you can see the text on that side kind of showing you what it's all about. I would suggest that you do that, especially if you're in the early stages. Don't go spending some goofy amount like $2,000, 2,512. I mean, this is so low cost. It's almost criminal not to jump on the bandwagon because a lot of the virtual boot camps out there, they offer you less for more. So just to clarify, what you're going to get when you come on board is 3 months of access to our learning management system as a support to start with. The real cost of that is over $300 on our site, but you're going to get that as part of this. In addition to this, you're also going to get the live virtual training delivery. So on Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays, you're going to be able to interact with your instructor. You're going to be able to be in a live situation where if you had questions, they could be answered as they come up instead of you scratching your head and suffering alone. In addition to that, you're going to get a 500 plus page study guide, which will greatly, trust me, it's going to so greatly simplify this that you would hardly believe how simple we've made it for you. And in addition to that, before the end of the training, we are also going to make available to you a library of audio for you to continually study after the course. You see? So you're going to get a study guide, you're going to get audio, you're going to get an LMS that is so content rich, it's just hopelessly ridiculous. Some folks don't even finish the LMS. They're like, Phil, I'm tapping out. My exam's tomorrow. And they've taken some of the quizzes, but not all, because they find it hard to go through everything. There's just so much of it that if you did it the right way, you really need to be regular in your mock exams, mini mocks, 2020 vision. I mean, there's so much stuff. Anyway, I say all of that to tell you, sign up, all right? Sign up. So those of you who are ready to take your exam and you're like rolling your eyes, I got to let people know what they're getting, all right? So I'm sorry if you're like, Phil, what's all this? Okay. So, still talking about misconceptions about the PMP exam. You thought I was done? I ain't done. We're still going to talk about misconceptions of developing the project charter before we get off this call. All right? So, for those of you that need to tap out, you're on the East Coast, your boss is breathing down your neck and knocking on the door and looking through the blinds. If you're in a conference room, you know the drill. If that's happening, tell them to hold off for another 10, 15 minutes. I need to get this develop project charter misconceptions done. All right. So let's talk about overarching misconceptions in the PMBOK guide in general. Do you know that a lot of people think that they need to apply every process to their projects? And some people even get offended. They're like, why didn't you do this process? I'm like, come on. It's not meant to be the entire kitchen sink. Have you heard of tailoring? If you haven't heard of tailoring, then you probably haven't read the guide in full. Because, this is what I like about the 6th edition. It's as if the PMI heard my complaints. Because very early in the 6th edition, the PMI mentioned the T word, tailoring. Oh my goodness. When I opened the book, when I finally got my hard copy, and I opened it up and I saw this mention of tailoring, I'm like, my goodness, you guys must have bugged my conversations, because all along, one of my gripes was that people were not aware of the T word, tailoring the PMBOK guide to their processes. And this is talked about on page 288. It says, usually project managers apply a methodology to their work. A methodology is a system of practices, techniques, procedures, and rules used by those who work in a discipline. This definition makes it clear that this guide itself is not a methodology. Boom! Thank you for helping the helpless understand, PMI. Because once upon a time, people used to say, the PMBOK guide methodology states, I'm like, it's not a methodology, but they wouldn't get it. But now the PMI have said it themselves in the guide. It is not a methodology. This definition makes it clear that this guide itself is not a methodology. It says, the guide and the standard for project management are recommended references for tailoring. You might want to highlight that word, because these standard documents identify the subset of the project management body of knowledge that is generally recognized as good practice. Good practice does not mean that the knowledge described should always be applied uniformly to all projects. It says specific methodology recommendations are outside the scope of this guide. So when I hear people bashing the guide and saying it's a waste of time, it's a fairy tale, projects aren't managed that way. Of course projects aren't managed that way. What are you talking about? Do you think the PMI seriously wants you to apply every single one of the 49 to every single project? If you do think that, you're living in La La Land. You're living in a fairy tale, folks, because that's not the case, okay? So I want to encourage you, those of you who have not really read Tailoring, I want you to go to page 28, look it up, Okay? It says project management methodologies may be developed by experts within the organization, purchased from vendors, obtained from professional associations, or acquired from government agencies. And then it says the appropriate project management processes, inputs, tools, techniques, outputs, and life cycle phases should be selected to manage a project. That means selected out of the 49. It says the selection activity is known as tailoring project management to the project. So go read it up, folks. In my mind, I often say think the 80-20 rule, think Pareto's law. 20% of the processes in the PMBOK guide, if applied right to your project, could give you an 80% return, an 80% payoff, whatever that looks like. So a lot of people are focusing on the 49. Focus on the 20% of the 49. Maybe it's 10. 10 processes could give you a massive bang for your buck on your project. So don't get sidetracked by trying to do everything under the sun. Some people feel, oh, it's sacrilege. We're not using earned value and the PMI says we should. No, it's not. No, it's not. Earned value may not be applicable to your short-term project. Moreover, you may not have a system that supports it, and you may not have willing participants. In that regard, education is needed, exposure is needed, but which of the others in cost management can you apply? Maybe it's simple determining the budget. Maybe it's committing management to a bottom-up estimate instead of the numbers they throw at you. Oh, there's 5 million, make it happen. No, we got to do a bottom-up estimate. This is a largely unknown territory. We've never been here before. You see, folks, so that's what I'm talking about. Okay? So the PMBOK guide should be applied on a project by project basis. All right? So go read up that page that I just showed you. That is a major misconception that people have when studying for the exam. All right. So let's talk about a few common misconceptions in integration management. The first one is the project charter is not a formal record for the project. Now, while this may sound intelligent, it is false. The correct statement is the key benefits of developed project charter is that it provides a direct link between the project and the strategic objectives of the organization, and it creates a formal record for the project, and it shows the organizational commitment to the project. But a lot of people fly past that. So if they came across a question referencing a formal record for the project, they may end up choosing a different thing, which could be wrong in the context of the question. The next one here is the developed project charter process is done just once. We do our project charter once, and that's the end of the story. Says who? According to the PMI, in the PMBOK guide, the developed project charter process is performed once or, don't miss the or at predefined points in the project. It could be done at certain points where chartering is necessary, by phase, for example. And while this is not exactly part of this discussion, the closed project or phase process illustrates what should be happening in developed project charter. We should be thinking on a phase by phase basis, not just, oh, I'm thinking once and for all. No. As the PMI state, we could do this at predefined points. Not at a predefined point, but at predefined points, whatever those points are. Okay? Could be at the end of a phase, could be a phase gate, a phase exit, a phase end review. We decide to do a chartering of the next one. So it could be a formal process, at predefined points. The next false statement is the project charter does not establish a partnership. Only a contract does that. Only a contract does that. But if you take a look at the true statement, it states the project charter establishes a partnership between the the performing and requesting organizations. In the case of external projects, a formal contract is typically the preferred way to establish an agreement. A project charter may still be used to establish internal agreements within an organization to ensure proper delivery under the contract. So, people thinking that, oh, the project charter, it doesn't establish a partnership, it's casual and so on, they're wrong. It does establish a partnership. And even in cases of external projects, it still could be used to establish an internal agreement, okay, about how to deliver under the contract with the external client. All right, we're almost done. Next, we have a statement that says the project manager is only assigned at contract sign or after the project charter is created. Again, it sounds intelligent, but it's false. But a lot of people think like this. Oh, the project manager is assigned at contract sign, or the project manager is assigned when all initiating is done, or the project manager isn't assigned until a particular point. Let's hear what the PMI say. PMI say a project manager is identified and assigned as early in the project as is feasible, preferably while the project charter is being developed, and always prior to the start of planning. So granted, some PMs may leave, a new one may come in, but the bottom line is on the first go round, you want to identify that PM as early as possible in the process. A lot of times the PM would work with the sponsor or initiator in putting together the project charter. Okay? So one more time, reminder, tools and techniques, if you're struggling with those, you want to go here. Before this was $49.99. I have made it available for $29.99. Okay? Go to tinyurl.com, ITTOPMPs. This will enable you comb through the multiple, and trust me, there's so many tools and techniques, but it will comb through all of them. So if you go to page 686 in the PMBOK guide and read to page 693, there is too many things. There are too many things to be covered sufficiently well on your own without some external help. Seriously, some of those ITTOs, they need a little bit of research. And that research, I've done most of the research that you need to do. All you need to do is open the book, look at the screen, and listen. So the tools and techniques that people often hate and cannot get straight, I go through all of them, grouped, ungrouped, and it takes 4.5 hours. But this is definitely time and resources well spent. All right. If you found this to be useful and you would like to sign up for any of our training, make sure you go to www.praizion.com. We've got a plethora of training aids, study materials. Go to the training menu and just find whatever you're looking for there. And I'm sure there will be something to help your PMP exam prep further along. All right. At this point, I want to ask if there are any questions, any comments, any concerns, anything I can answer for you. Now would be a great time. Or maybe you just want to be accountable and say, Phil, I've fallen off the wagon, but I'm promising I'm going to get back on the horse. Yep, I can see I've got one of my students online. If you want to come clean, that would be if you want to come clean, that would be a good time for you to say, Phil, I'm guilty as charged, and I'm going to do my bit, and I'm going to get back on the horse, and I'm going to daily study. Let me tell you what amazes me. Some students, they pay like anywhere from $350 to $550 to get on the system. They don't log on for weeks. Why? Why wouldn't you log on for weeks? Someone said, Phil, life gets in the way. Yeah, life gets in the way, but you don't even... At least you could send a message to say, Phil, I know that you're expecting a report, but something happened, like some of our students do. They say, Phil, I got to tap out. There's a health concern in the family, or something happened. But don't just vanish. Don't just up and leave, because I'm a stakeholder as well. I want you to succeed. I'm not in this for the short haul. This is not about you just jumping on the website and signing up for training. No, that is the least interesting thing for me. The most interesting thing for me is you're on the system, you're studying, you're learning, you're opening up your book. Your friend Phil hasn't become a barking dog when he says, carry your PenBook guide around on your mobile device. You're actually listening to me, right? Some of you are, and that's evidenced by the massive successes lots of our students have had. But some of you aren't. Some of you haven't studied for 3 or 4 days. And it's my job to hold you accountable. Annie, I didn't mention any names. I mentioned no names, but I appreciate you coming clean with it. And hey, let's just pick up from where we stopped and let's continue the grind. That mock exam, Annie, I don't believe you've taken that mock exam. The 50 question one. Put it on your calendar, Annie, all right? Put it. Oh my goodness. He just decided to declare that he's in the building, and I didn't mention any names. Arif, what is going on, man? What is happening? You're one of my A-lister students from way back in the 18th century. What is going on? Because it's funny, the other day at Praizion was saying, what? Where is Arif? And then we concluded, yeah, work. It might be work that's getting in the way. But it's so good to see you, Arif. Arif says, hi, Phil. If you work daily 12 hours for 6 to 5 days a week on projects that you exhausted once you reach home. Okay, here's my secret. You gotta be selfish. You gotta preserve some of your energy. Okay? There's a difference between having to work on a project for that amount of time and not having a single break versus taking a break. You got to give yourself a break within the day. It is then that you're going to be able to at least put in some time and effort. That'll be my first piece of advice. Secondly, the fitter you are physically, the more you're going to be able to bounce back and recover from such an exhausting day and jump back on the horse. So I know that some jobs can be backbreak. I mean, I've been in similar jobs. I mean, like very physical. I've done warehouse jobs before. So I know how that goes, you know. So my suggestion, I remember my first like major job when I got out of college. It was a warehouse job. It was brutal, but the first few days were brutal, and after that, I realized I needed to be fit. I needed to have healthy habits, and then I would be able to function normally in other parts of life. So my advice to you, Arif, would be keep fit, keep in shape, do all that, and be a little bit more selfish for yourself. Hey, your break time. Try to use your break time if you can to just do a little bit. Just isolate yourself if you can. I'm not sure what the culture of the company is, but some companies they don't have draconian managers. If your company allows you a little bit of wiggle room, take a little bit of time out and maybe just put in 30 minutes. Maybe you can start from 15, 20, 30. The more you're on it. Another thing I would recommend, Arif, you've got the audio digest. I'm wondering how much of the audio digest have you been listening to? Put those earplugs in if possible. If that's not possible, then listen to it in your commute. Check out this video. I have a video out there, Reef. I don't know if you've watched it. It's called How to Study for 4 Hours a Day. Have you watched it? I'm gonna put the link in here so that you can go watch it and get some ideas. But these are my aggressive. That's my aggressive idea about how someone can study for 4 hours a day if. So Annie, you're gonna do it tomorrow. Fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. I want to see those results. Okay, Arif, keep fit, keep in shape. You'll be amazed at how easier the day could be with a little bit more exercise, a little bit more sleeping the right time, doing the right stuff, and then be a little bit selfish for yourself. If your break is 1 hour, don't shortchange yourself by working through your break time. Tomorrow is going to be there. Do you know what my philosophy is, folks? My philosophy is, if I'm working for one of those corporations and I don't show up to work tomorrow, is the company going to fold up? No, it's not. They'll find a replacement in a heartbeat. So, what I'm trying to say is, don't kill yourself to do your job. Do what you can do. Some days are going to be like brutal, like absolutely, like you're going to be wiped out. But don't make it your routine to kill yourself in your project management, or in your job. You got to be a little bit selfish, because if there's no you, what's going to happen? So leave some of you for the next day, all right? Be a little bit selfish. Don't let the gremlins, that typically sit on your shoulder and say you're being bad by taking a 1 hour break. No, I'm not. I need I need to take time out for myself, and I need to be able to focus so that when I get my PMP accomplished, I will even be able to add so much more value to my firm, to my colleagues, to my boss. Because getting PMP certified is not just for the short haul, it's for the long haul. You want to add value to your company, you want to train people, you want to coach them, mentor them, help them, and lead them on the trajectory that you've been. That's what it's about. So I encourage you, take some time out for yourself, take a breather, go for walks, during your lunch break, try and enjoy a little bit more of the outdoors. And the second half of the day gets a little bit easier. And then you get home and you still got a little bit of mileage, or you get home and sleep for 2 hours or 3 hours. But one of the most important things, Arif, is you need to let your stakeholders know what you're up against. Be it a spouse, a child, a parent, anyone around you, friend, whoever is in your world, okay, outside of the PMP, you got to let them know. I've found this to be true in a lot of my students' lives. As they prepare for the exam, they begin telling people, I'm sorry, I can't make this engagement, I can't do this, I need help from you in this. And when they get certified, they're like, Phil, I'm so happy we never have to listen to you again in the car. Or, thank goodness, my poor kids, they were wondering when they're going to get their dad back, when they're going to get their mom back. And now it's done. They're on top of the world. But it comes with a little bit of sacrifice from both ends, from several ends. One of my students said, my boss has decided to allow me to do this or take time out on these days just so I get it done. So that's it, folks. All right, that's the way forward. So I want to thank you, those of you who joined, those of you who asked questions. I appreciate your contribution. If you've still got any questions, I'm not running away. I would love to answer your questions before I hop off. So if you've got any more questions or concerns, hey, those of you who haven't come clean, I can see you. I know you're there. I know you're watching, and they're like, Phil, I'm not gonna tell you that I'm here watching, because what am I gonna do? What's your buddy Phil gonna do other than encourage you? Right? All I'm gonna do is encourage you. All right? I'm not marking it down in some register. I'm certainly not the PMI. So I appreciate the accountability, Annie. I appreciate you. Arif, I am so glad that you came on the call, because we've been trying to solve this riddle of the missing Arif, and now you've come on. We know that you're well, and we know that you're, still on track, because you were mowing this stuff down. So I'm really looking forward to you getting certified. I'm looking forward to your lessons learned webinar after you get certified to come drop gold. I'm looking forward to it. Okay? All right, folks, in the absence of questions or anything else, one more time, like I said, you might want to take the free mock exam sampler that I showed you at the beginning. If you missed that, let me show it to you again. I would like you to go to the Praizion website, okay, praizion.com, And in the menu, if you go to the top, right there in the menu, under training and PMP and CAPM exam, you can find the three 200 question full length mock. And then you want to scroll down to the bottom. There is a mock PMP sample. The password PMP done data. Go in there. Don't you love what Google has done these days? Anyway, that's for a different call. That's for a different call. Google and their overzealousness, but they've done some crazy stuff these days. I never thought I would oh, I'm using the wrong. I never thought I would quote Explorer as a tool of choice. Anyway, that's a different topic. But yeah, go in there and hit start and enjoy. As you can see on the screen, you'll be able to go in and answer 10 fun questions. I think you will enjoy answering these questions. I think. Might be wrong, but it's just a hunch. And the reason why I think you'll enjoy them is the typical test taker gets less than 60% of these questions right, which is fun. If you're getting ready for the exam, it's fun to find new things, right? All right, folks. So I appreciate you. I think I saw a chat just come in. Let's take a look at that chat. And Steve, how you doing? So Steve, just go to the Praizion site, okay? Go to training menu and take a look. No questions the same as the PMP test questions. Go ask my students who have killed the exam on my watch. They'll tell you that the questions they encountered in many instances are a big run for their money and time, such that it prepared them. One of my students, Steve, said, Phil, I was in the exam and I could not believe how easy it was for me to answer questions. And I felt this is a hoax. This has got to be, am I in the wrong exam? How am I able to do that? You see? And I've trained so many students, those who have got three ATs, four ATs, five ATs. I mean, five ATs is a regular. Five above targets used to be, wow. But for me, these days, it's like, yep, you followed the process, you did what you needed to do, because I see it so often. Three, I see it so often. Four, five as well. Okay. So these questions, they were written, like I said, by 8 question writers all around the world: Africa, Asia, US, the Americas. So we've got a very wholesome perspective across the entire gamut of our 3 200 question major mock exams. Okay? So, yeah, while the PMP exam questions are very, very different in many respects, these mock exam questions, they have been concocted by some equally crazy question writers. And I'm not just talking about myself, I'm talking about my team of question writers worldwide. Okay? So, with that, folks, I want to say a massive thank you to you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming aboard. Thank you for sticking with me and asking all these questions. And don't forget, I am always here to help. Okay? I am always here to help. If you got any questions, you got any comments, you got any concerns, I will be more than happy. More than happy. So, Steve, I'm sorry to hear that. You said you went to the wrong training. Oh my goodness, Steve. Well, Steve, all hope is not lost. Let me encourage you, Steve. One of my students out of deep down under in Australia, his company paid for some boot camp, and the feedback from him was that very, very few people, if any, from the class were getting certified, at a reasonable rate. And then after he failed the exam a couple of times, he really honed in on some of the stuff I had been saying, and he got a package. I can't remember which package it was, but he got this package, came on the system, studied, and unfortunately, he did not meet the mark. I feel that, some boot camps, that's what I said in the beginning, Steve. And you're probably right. Some boot camps, they're like poison. I would not wish them on my worst enemy. I would not. And unfortunately, he went for such a boot camp and it screwed up his understanding. And three strikes and he was out. But here's the good news, Steve. I said to him, you know what, to keep your momentum up, why not take the CAPM exam? And he was so bummed out by the exam, he said, Phil, I ain't taking the CAPM. I'm going to wait a year and then I'm going to get back on the horse and start off again. And in my mind, I'm like, I really hope you get the velocity and the inspiration to do this come 1 year. And like clockwork, as though timed by an alarm clock, the moment it was 1 year, he said, Phil, I'm ready to start again. And what really made me go the extra mile for this student is he believed in his buddy Phil and his method that he would be able to ace the exam finally. So I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this and study. And I didn't hear from him for a while. And then I get the email, Phil, I failed the fourth time. Like, what? Why didn't you tell me your exam was close? We should have had some touch points. We should have done. Then I got crazy. Then it became personal, like it does a lot of times between me and the PMI. I'm like, you dare do this to one of my own, you're in trouble. I crafted out one of the sickest programs for this student, went the extra mile, everything under the sun that you could throw at the PMP exam, every test, every mock, everything. Basically, any spell, any potion that I could muster, I went into my lab and created. And I said, this is what we're going to do. Let's do it. Steve, I can tell you conveniently today, this student went into the exam on the fifth try. After the three strikes and you're out for a year, he's now a PMP boss. He's now a don. In fact, let me see. Let me see if I am able to read any lessons learned from this student, Steve. I mean, this, I don't know, this, it might motivate you and some other folks who are on the journey. So let me see if I can go into my treasure trove of student lessons and see if I can pull this out for you. Um, let's see if I can just read a word from this student. Okay. All right. So this student, he says, it was hard to swallow failing 3 times and having to take a year off, especially as some of my colleagues at work passed it back years ago when our company paid for us to go on a 35-hour course. All sorts of stuff was going through my head. I took it personally and I found it hard to move on with day to day life. Even when I was with my family going to outings and everyone was having fun. Isn't that sad? That almost makes me want to cry. You see why I'm so fired up and propelled like a maniac to help people pass the exam? Imagine reading an email like this. Imagine this dude going out with his family to have fun, and because of this ridiculous exam, he's unable to have as much fun as he should. You know how that makes me feel? He said, I always would think about why I couldn't pass the test. So because I couldn't move on properly with my life and it was affecting me, I said to myself, I'm applying again when my 1 year finishes, and then I'm going to pass this thing no matter what. I understand you focus more on live training events with firms rather than online, hence why so many users online haven't heard of Praizion. So I do a lot of heavy road trips to train, and that's what he's saying. But in saying that you do a lot of YouTube videos, they work a treat, as that's how I came across you initially. My favorite quote from you is, guys, you gotta know the ITTO's cold. All this stuff you need to know cold. I couldn't stop laughing. It's only after I realized how true it was. I've been thinking for a while now what I want to do career wise. So he's saying now he's certified, he's thinking about what he wants to do career wise moving forward. Do I want to stay in my 9 to 5 job, work for myself? How cool is that? I'm thinking I want to start my own blog. I want to write content on project management and specifically the PMP exam. I know the loan won't make me money. Eventually, I have to produce some products. And then he goes on and on, and he shares a boatload of stuff with me. And yeah, and anyway, it's a long story. The summary of this, and I need to go back and read it because it's quite refreshing. The summary of it is on his final try. We got everything, Steve. Everything under the sun that existed. Everything I mean, I told him you need to go crazy on all these new things I'm telling you to do. And he did, and he's now PMP, you see. So I want to encourage you, Steve. Oh, you just took it yesterday. Wow. 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 Steve, I want to encourage you. Don't be discouraged about this thing. I have helped a ton of students, none on their first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh, but even the eighth try. I've helped students who have killed it on try number eight. So don't lose hope. You're not going to get to try number eight. We're going to do this thing on the fourth try. But when the 1 year probationary period is over, Steve, I want you to come looking for Praizion, come to the channel and say, I'm ready to do this. Okay? Don't lose hope. In the meantime, I mean, you might be different from this student, and maybe you don't mind taking something else like the, I don't know, PGMP, RMP, SP, CAPM, or maybe you're just so tired of it and you need a break. That's fine. Okay? So whatever you want to do, I'm fine with it. But, maybe you're thinking of the ACP. I don't know. But whatever it is, you can be rest assured I will be here to tell you the truth, and I will be here to motivate and encourage you. And I will be here to answer any questions. And for anyone else out there who may have taken it on their second or third try, or maybe even sixth try, or whatever the try is, I'll always be here. I'll be the voice of reason. You know that I'll never sugarcoat it. A lot of people don't like what I say because they say, oh, Phil, you make it sound so terrifying and hard. Why would I sugarcoat it if it gives you a wrong impression? You know, or it might be a gripe of, oh, you make it sound too easy. I just tell it to you like it is. So, Steve, I want to encourage you. Don't don't worry. Oh, you've been a PM on your job? Wow, wow. Don't worry. We'll take those 10 years, okay? We'll take those 10 years, the experience from it. We'll put it to use as you study on your next attempt, okay? I totally agree with you. The questions on the PMP exam, they're like very few questions that are out there. I mean, there's some PMI exams, and I've taken so many RMP, SP, ACP, CAPM, OPM, 3 PMP. I've taken like 6 PMI exams, and if you count the OPM 3, I had 2 or 3 exams in one, at different points. So I've been through this stuff quite a lot. But one thing I can tell you is that the exam questions, gee, one of my PMI exams, as I'm taking the exam questions, I just marvel to myself. If I can find this question to be so slimy, and I'm a question writer for PMP mock exams, how would a poor person that doesn't write questions think of this content? It was so slimy. So sly. I was just laughing to myself at how sly this question writer was. So I can totally relate to what you're saying, Steve. The questions on the exam, there's something. there, there's something. I mean, you almost got to read every single word because one word can make a massive difference in the entire scheme of the question. If you get that word wrong, it's downhill. The funny thing is, one might actually think one has done a great job until you look carefully and you just see a difference of a word. It could be as simple as scope versus high level scope, or it could be reviewing requirements versus collecting requirements. You see? Two different things. Reviewing requirements, define scope. I could be doing that. Collecting requirements, collect requirements. So one word could change the dimensions of the question entirely, you know, entirely. And I totally agree with you, Steve. Many of the mock exams out there, they're like, oh, if you get an 80, you're ready. That's why I tell people take our mock exams for goodness sake. It would help me know that you're ready because the margin of occurrence of someone passing our mock exam on their first try and not passing the real exam, it's like almost like nothing. The most recent one was a student who had taken our mock exam before and passed it the second time, like a year later. But I'm struggling to remember an incident where a student that had never taken a mock exam took it, passed it, and didn't pass the real exam on their first attempt. Anyone taking our mock exams on their first attempt and passing it on their first attempt, I'm talking about the 4 hour mocks, I have known those folks to all go mow down the real exam, you see. So definitely, Steve, you were on the wrong mock exams, you know. And I don't have anything against people writing mock exam questions, but I don't know any of them to be as good a litmus test as our mocks. Our mocks are ridiculous. I mean, they're so ridiculous that someone gets a 72, and I know I don't need to worry about them anymore because our passing score isn't even 80, it's 70. But those folks who achieve a 70 on their first attempt of our mock exam, they're just like, oh, this is the life. I know these guys are going to mow down the real exam, you know. It's like historical information on steroids because we've had this exam since 2009. When we first rolled it out 2009, people would say exactly what you said, Steve. They would say, Phil, I got like an 80, an 85 on your mock. Yet when I got into the real PMP exam, I found myself struggling. I passed, but I found myself struggling. So it was that feedback from one of our companies, one of our clients out of DC, that made us realize we're being too lenient. And over a period of 3 to 4 years, we began to build. So by the time it got to 2010, our mock exam was already a crazy litmus test, the best that I know of. I know there are many mock exams out there, I know there are many firms, but I don't know of any. And hey, if you guys know of any that has like the perfect litmus test, everyone who passes this exam with a passing score on their first try have all gone on to pass the real exam. I want to know of such an exam. I don't know of any. I don't. Because the variability of people taking, like Steve is saying, they get an 85, some pass, but some fail. You get 2 people getting a 90. One passes, one. How is that? So, for those of you who are still like, I'm in an orange, should I sign up for the Praizion mock? Should I not? I'll just tell you, it's insurance. It's just insurance. And if you fail our mock, for goodness sake, please do not take the real exam until you've closed your gaps. If you fail the first mock, close your gaps. Take it again. You pass it, go on to the second one. If you fail it, close the gaps, take it again. Don't just move on, mock 1, mock 2, mock 3. No, no, no. Close your gaps and pass it. Then move to the next one. That's what I would recommend. But Steve, going back to what you've said, we're going to be here 1 year from now. God willing, we're going to be here and come on board our course. Okay? Bring your experience. Let's marry up your experience in project management with this big old book here. Okay? Let's do that and we'll get you in ship shape. I know. I can only imagine that you spend a ton of cash. Our solution, very low cost. Someone can get on our learning system for the price of 10 Happy Meals. Well, however much that costs, or whatever comes in the Happy Meal. But seriously speaking, with 125 bucks, you can come on board our program for a week. And a week of studying with us can make a world of difference. I talked about Parmeet Singh out of Canada, how he came aboard our system on a Thursday. kill the exam on a Monday. I'm not saying that those are the results that always, should be aimed at, but I'm saying if you come on our system, which is very low cost, 175 for a month, or you come on board our training, in person training, or virtual training, because in person is exclusively for companies, but we have live online, which is very good as well. Um, yeah, you'll be able to marry your real experience with some pragmatism around the PMBOK guide, you know. So you mean like come on board and start studying again before the 1 year hits? Not a bad idea, Steve. So what this student that I read the email, I read his email out, what that student did was he went cold turkey. No PMP, he waited a year. If you don't want to wait a year, my advice would be to fill it in with some productive things. So what industry are you in? Oh, you paid 60 a month? Okay. So which industry are you in? Because the industry you're in, um, I would say begin to create a course to teach yourself. That could be a good way of doing things. One of my students, who was a YouTube student, he decided to create his own channel, and he's created his own channel training this stuff. Um, so I would say even before you take the exam again, maybe you can marry your real world with a PMBOK guide. Create a course. Oh, you're in healthcare. Fantastic. Okay. So I mean, healthcare has a million and one. I don't know if you've been to this site, Steve. Let me show you this site really quick, because being that you're in healthcare, you might find this site, which I find very helpful. You might find it helpful as well. Um, so let's go there. If you go to this website, um, tiny.cc/sigma PMO, you go to that site, it takes you to CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Let me see if I can copy that and paste it into the chat. This could make some interesting research for you. Um, the reason why I say it's such a cool site, Steve, is because the CDC did some great homework in putting out almost every one of those outputs that become project documents or become part of the project management plan. The CDC have got a plethora of them: change log, change management plan. I mean, going through all of this stuff, studying them, maybe downloading them and updating them to your taste, that could be a good exercise. You see, they got a plethora of those inputs and outputs. You know, some really good stuff. So my suggestion would be maybe go here and see what you can glean from the examples, and go to page 89 in the PMBOK guide and make sure you cover the laundry list of those. Do it over time. I mean, not in a day, over a period of time, just to keep you in that momentum, in that mood. Go through those on page 89 for the planning components, project document components. And I think this could be a good little project for you. Maybe you could update them to your taste, you know, and that will keep you in the zone as you study, as you study for the exam, or as you get ready for the 1 year period to pass. Before you know it, you're there, and you've got a renewed understanding of some of these inputs and outputs talked about. That isn't the only site, though. There's another site. Let me see if I can remember this one. Tiny.cc/sigma PMO. I think it's the number one. Or is it the number two? It's one of those. Okay, it's that one. So the number one. So let me type that into the chat as well.